Hey everybody, welcome to Broadband Deployment News. If you are a broadband service provider, then you need to pay attention. Today's topic is CALEA. There is a new mandatory filing requirement for broadband service providers for CALEA SSI plans. What is CALEA? What is an SSI plan? I'll be right back and tell you all about it. Thanks for joining me. Rick Husey here with Zcorum. So what is CALEA? So this is important. If you are an internet service provider or you're going to be an internet service provider, you need to know about CALEA because this is something that's been around. It was actually around since 1999, but did not start applying to broadband providers until 2005 or so. And at that point, there was a lot of activity where broadband service providers, this is a mandate that broadband service providers need to follow. So that if the FBI knocks on your door with a CALEA request, and that would be a request, that would be a subpoena from the court, like a court order, for a request to basically put a tap on somebody's broadband connection, if you will. So to be able to do a live stream of information coming from somebody's broadband account, and then that gets put in the format that the law enforcement agency, usually something like the FBI, needs. And then it's sent to them sent to them securely in an electronic format, in the format that they need. And this is something that, again, there's a court order that's required. So that needs to be looked at. You need to have the equipment on your network to be able to respond within 24 hours, I think 24 to 48 hours or so, to get that set up. And this is all stuff that's been in place. A lot of new internet service providers have no idea about this. And if you were to have a CALEA request and you cannot comply, then you can be fined up to $10,000 per day for not being in compliance. And this has been in effect for a long time, so there's going to be less leeway for internet service providers if the FBI comes in and then suddenly they can't get the information they need, because this is kind of critical stuff. This is where you've got maybe terrorists or it could be child pornography or something like that, something really serious where they want to make sure that this information is securely gained, that it cannot, a lot of people don't know about this, only specific people in a company. And that's both to protect the data and the fact that they're doing a live surveillance of this, and then also to protect the person who they're surveilling, because it could be that maybe they're not guilty. So you want to make sure that only a limited number of people know this. So that's what it's all about. And this was put in place back around 1999 for phone systems, because we started to get into digital switches. So the time when you could easily put a pen tap kind of trace on a analog switch were gone. You had these digital switches. So the switch manufacturers needed to come in compliance, and telephone carriers needed to come into compliance, and then VoIP providers. And then in 2005, this was amended so that it included broadband service providers. So as a broadband service provider, you need to be able to comply with this. There's two ways you can do it. One is to build all of this yourself and figure it all out yourself, make sure that you have the equipment, the probes in the network to be able to put in place when you get one of these. Or you can use something called a trusted third party, where that trusted third party will take care of this for you. Usually they're the experts, and they, for example, when you get one of these, they will look at the subpoena. They'll verify that it is valid. They will send you the equipment and tell you where to put it in your network to be able to collect the data for the particular subscriber, those kinds of things. And we, by the way, can act as a trusted third party. So I'll have our contact information here at the end of this. If you are in need of this service, we'll be happy to help you. It's the kind of thing where it's going to be, in most cases, unless you're like a really big provider, in most cases, it's going to be more economical for you to just say, I'm just going to get a trusted third party, let them handle it, because while it happens, it doesn't happen all the time, but it does happen. We have customers from small operators that might be operating in a city or a state to regional, several state kinds of providers. And we've had providers of different sizes, including smaller ones, get a CALEA request. So it's the kind of thing that can happen, and you want to make sure that you're prepared for it. And it's kind of like insurance. Nobody wants to have it in place, but if you don't have it and then something happens, then you're really sorry you didn't have it. So it's just something to keep in mind. This is something you've got to do. And what's important about this is back in 2005, when this all rolled out, the FCC have this requirement for what's called a system security and integrity plan. And that plan is something that tells them how you are going to handle CALEA requests. You've got to have everything in place as far as making sure that you're keeping the information to a limited number of people, and basically describes your policies and your procedures. And those were all filed by a paper. And most operators, when they first knew they had to do this, they put it together, they sent it to the FCC, and then pretty much ignored it from there. I mean, and the FCC probably ignored it. It went in a file somewhere. But those are supposed to be updated on a regular basis. If you make changes to your network or personnel, for example, you need to have the personnel listed in there that are to be contacted if you get a CALEA request, those kinds of things. So it's supposed to be a dynamic kind of thing that's updated. Well, the FCC has finally come out with an electronic filing system for this. And I did a video about this back in, I think it was September of last year, when they first said, okay, we're going to have a new online filing system, and we would like service providers to start voluntarily moving their SSI plans into this system, but it will be mandated at some point. So they said it will be mandated at some point. So I did a video back then, and now I'm doing the video to tell you that it is mandated. In fact, the deadline has passed. It was June 29th, I think. The good news is I don't anticipate that there would be any fines if you go in there now and file. I think they're going to be happy to get people in there filing. So I would not file and think, well, I won't file, and then they won't find out. Because now that they have an electronic filing system, it will be much easier for them to look through their system and compare with internet service providers throughout the country and figure out who has an SSI plan and who does not in the system. And that will make it easier to figure out who is in compliance and who is not. And again, you want to be in compliance for this, especially if you get the FBI at your door, and immediately you need to be able to respond. So this is very important. So I want to make sure that I did this broadcast, and I want to make sure that I gave you the resources that you need to figure out what's going on here. We have a sample system, SSI plan, security system and integrity plan that we can provide. If you'd like that, just email us at info@zquorum.com. I'll put that up at the end of this broadcast. Well, actually, I put it up right now. So if you want to get that sample SSI plan, that would be the paper kind of version that was originally used, but what you would use this now for would be a template to be able to know what I need to be able to put in this online filing system. So you'll see our email address there. You see our phone number if you want to contact us about that. So just go ahead and do that. But I want to make sure that you had all the resources that you need. So first off, I've got links to all of these things in the description of this video. So you see here we've got the Communications Assistance for Law Enforcement Act. This is a page that's got all kinds of information and FAQs. It talks about the SSI plans right here. You see compliance requires the filing of a SSI. SSI FAQs, you've got all of that here that you can go through. So that's that page. And then this is the notice that just came out recently. So you see this was adopted May 15th, 2023, released the same date. In this order, we amend the Commission's rules to require electronic filing of new and updated SSI policies and procedures by covered entities under the Communications Assistance for Law Enforcement Act. It says this new rule will require electronic filing of SSI plans in the new CALEA Electronic Filing System and become effective 30 days after it's published in the Federal Register. And you see here's the Federal Register. I've got a link to this as well. So this was, you see here, May 30th is when, so this was like 15 days after that public announcement. And this is the Federal Register on that ruling. So I've got that up there as well because that's some good summarized information. And then as far as who's covered, again, this is you if you're a broadband service provider or a VoIP provider. You see here, CALEA requirements apply to common carriers, facilities-based internet access service providers, and interconnected voice internet protocol or VoIP service providers. So that's what it applies to. So this would apply to you if you're any kind of an internet service provider. I see here just some background. On June 1st, 2022, the Public Safety and Homeland Security Bureau announced the launch of CEFS, that's the filing system, electronic filing system, which allows covered entities, internet service providers and VoIP providers, to file SSI plans confidentially and securely online. It's very important that it's confidential because you'll have confidential information in there, maybe about how you're going to be handling these things, and we want to make sure that that's not getting out there. And once you've electronically filed that plan, to log back in and retrieve and view that filing. So you can go in, you can make changes. If you have new contact people, if you change a policy or whatever, you can make those changes. Bureau stated that electronic filing of SSI plans in CEFS would initially be voluntarily, and that's I mentioned, and proposed to make electronic filing mandatory 6 months after activation. On December 12, 2022, the Bureau announced the availability of CEFS for voluntary filing of SSI plans. Then there was the Federal Register announcement, and now it's mandatory. So you see here, mandatory electronic filing. By providing a transition period, as proposed, since voluntary filing commenced on December 12, 2022, we gave covered entities sufficient time to familiarize themselves with CEFS and the Commission Registration System, or CORS, if necessary, and obtain FCC usernames and FCC user registration numbers needed to file in CEFS. So CORS and FRN should be something that will be familiar with all internet service providers. That's something that you have to file or have had to have access to for filing things, I believe, like your 477 forms, and probably now, I think your broadband data collection when you go in and file where you provide broadband service at an address-by-address location, then you're entering that system anyway. So, but I think what I'm reading into this is, hey, you've had time to get this together, so you really should be doing this now. Again, I don't anticipate that you would be fined if you put it in later, but you certainly could be fined if you don't get it in at some point, and if you then are unable to respond to a CALEA request. So again, I've linked to this as well. I linked to this Federal Register article. This also I linked to. This is the CALEA Electronic Filing System, or CEFS user manual. So this will give you everything you need to know. I don't think I understand it's not that difficult as far as the information that you would file. If you've already got the federal registration number and you've got your CORS access, that kind of thing, there's only a limited amount of information that you're going to have to provide in there. But there's a good sized manual in here that you can look through. And some trusted third parties might file this for you. We would prefer that you do that yourself, because again, there's, we'd have to have access to your FRN number. We don't really want that. We'd prefer that we not have access to that in order to file for you. But again, it's not that difficult. And we've got, as I mentioned, you can get, we'll send you a copy of this sample CALEA System Security and Integrity Policy Manual that we've used in the past when this was filed by paper. And again, it's pretty much the same information. And if we are providing the trusted third-party service for you on this, and you have questions about the filing, we'll certainly answer those. We'll help point you in the right direction or tell you what you need to do. But we just don't want to go in there and log in and do it for you, since we'd have to have access to your FRN number, and then we'd have access to whatever else you got in there. We really don't want to do that. So that, again, is something that we will help you with. And we will send you a copy of this if you'd like. Just, again, if you're watching this and would like a copy to see what this is all about, just send me an email to info@zequorum.com. That will come to me. We'll make sure that we send that to you. So, and again, you can reach out to us if you have any questions on this at info@zequorum.com, or give us a call, and you can just press the number for the sales department. They'll be happy to talk to you about it. So trusted third-party service is basically what we'll do. And let me just point you also. You see our website there. So if you just go to zequorum.com, I'll do this right now. And we'll pull this up here. So if you go to zequorum.com, did I type that right? Yeah. Go here under products, and you'll see CALEA services right down here. Click on that. And then you'll see we've got our trusted third-party services here, information on that, some resources right here. What do we got under that? Product sheet and some additional information. There's an FAQ. Tells you about the services that we provide right here. So as an example, I better make this bigger. I can't read it where I'm looking at it there. So we'll review and engineer the required network intercept devices. So, one of the things that we do when we sign you up for this is we look at your network as it is today, and we let you know how many intercept devices you'll need. And it'll depend on how spread out your network is, how many points of presence you have, that kind of thing, and where they would go at that time. But then we also, every year or two, we'll come back and review that to make sure that nothing's changed substantially where we need to be aware of. We'll provide and provision the hardware and software to meet the requested CALEA needs. So when the FBI knocks on your door and says, hey, here's a CALEA request, we'll validate that. As you see here, we'll validate the request, and we'll ship you a probe, again, that you would put in the network. And I think at that point, we'll probably take a quick review of the network and make sure we know everything. So you'll get that probe. We'll let you know how to put it in, where to put it in. work with you in your designee to facilitate the connection of the active device to the mediation server. So basically that probe, what it does is it isolates the traffic from a specific subscriber, and then it formats it and mediates that data in such a format that that's the way that the law enforcement agency can accept it. So we make sure all of that takes place in the format that they need, including coordination of the VPN if required, if there's a VPN required. We mediate the raw data from the probe and send it to the law enforcement agency, as I mentioned, the requested format. So that's kind of a second part of that. Ensure that the trusted third-party service meets the requirements of the laws and rules while keeping you updated. So we make sure that if there are any changes with CALEA, that we would make sure that we keep our policies as far as trusted third party and how we're going to do this to your benefit up to date. And then we provide 24/7 support. If you have a subpoena come in at any time, we'll be basically your 24-hour contact on that. So we'll get that rolling as quickly as possible. So these are the kind of things that we can do for you. So again, I think a lot of internet service providers maybe did something with this years ago, 2005, 2006, when there was a lot of focus on it. Those that have entered the business since then probably don't even know about it. They may not even be aware of it. But now with this coming up, it's giving you an opportunity to be aware of it, number one, and it's giving the FCC an opportunity to more easily figure out who is in compliance and who's not, especially as far as these SSI plans go. So it's something you really need to take seriously, especially, as I mentioned, since it could be $10,000 per day if you're not in compliance and you were to get a CALEA request. And I don't know if there would be fines if the FCC finds out you don't have an SSI plan at some point, but certainly they will then be on you to get in compliance. So it's something you should take care of. And the other thing is, I think there are probably some internet service providers that know about it, but again, it's like insurance, who wants to do it? But maybe they're trying to fly under the radar. But we've seen an uptick in CALEA requests. In the early years, there weren't that many, but now there's so many threats, cyber threats that are out there, and terrorist threats, that it is the kind of thing that we're seeing more and more of. So you need to be prepared for this. There's a good chance it could happen to you, especially the larger you are, the more subscribers you have that are out there that could be doing bad things, the more likely you might get one of these. So again, I want to make you aware of this, and at the very least, make sure whether you get trusted third-party services from us or whether you try to build all of this yourself or getting it from somebody else. Maybe you're getting it from somebody else and you didn't realize you needed to file this electronically then now you know. So I want to make sure you were aware of this. So anyway, thanks for joining me. If this was helpful, interesting, if you learned something new today, if you give me a thumbs up on the video, I'd appreciate it. If you are not subscribed to our channel, just click the subscribe button on YouTube somewhere down there and click the bell to be notified when I'm live, and then you will get a little pop-up notification whenever I'm live or we post a new video. Thanks a lot for joining me today, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.